Cyril, a young boy reincarnated into the world of a dating game, has only one mission: save his favorite character, the tragic villainess Lady Sophia, from her fated execution. Using his knowledge from a past life, he becomes her loyal butler and works tirelessly to steer her away from the path of darkness. He succeeds beyond his wildest dreams, preventing her fall and ensuring her happiness. But in a horrifying twist of fate, he discovers that by saving her from the prince, he has made himself the new object of her obsessive, all-consuming love, and the sole target of the villainess he created. A young boy introduces himself as Cyril to Lady Sophia. She questions the name Cyril as he respectfully addresses her as my lady. Cyril reveals his true purpose as an apprentice butler is to ensure he can prevent Lady Sophia from meeting her grim execution ending. He explains that he has been reincarnated into the world of an otome game he once played called The Espressivo of Light and Darkness. She is 6-year-old Sophia Rosenberg, the daughter of a marquis and the prince's fiancée, while Cyril recalls his past life in a technologically superior world where he studied magic. Cyril knows that at age 16 the prince will fall for the game's main heroine, which will cause Sophia to be consumed by darkness. Her intense jealousy drives her to harass the heroine, which eventually leads to her being discovered by the prince and executed alongside her butler accomplice for her villainous actions. Cyril possesses this knowledge because his sister in his previous life was an avid gamer who had forced him to play this specific otome game. He then reveals with grim determination that the butler who is executed alongside her, none other than himself, and he is resolved to do whatever it takes to prevent this future. Cyril thinks that avoiding his execution would be simple, but there is a real challenge. He admits that Sophia is his favorite character from the game because beneath her villainous role she has a kind heart, and her tragic backstory, which involves being harassed by maids, was designed to make players sympathize with her. He therefore decides he must also save her from her tragic fate and bows with a renewed sense of purpose. To save her, he must first prevent her personality from becoming twisted by removing the source of her suffering, and he also needs to enhance her charms so the prince won't be swayed by the main heroine. Cyril knows there is another major obstacle to overcome later, but for now his priority is to gain Sophia's trust and guide her away from her dark destiny as quickly as possible, since in the original story he only becomes her butler at age 15, which would be too late. By combining his game knowledge with his natural talents, he managed to prove his exceptional abilities and earn the position of her apprentice butler at the young age of 6. A curious Sophia asks what a butler is, and Cyril explains it is someone who does everything for you and is always there for you. Sophia then asks if he will always be there for her, and Cyril kneels and solemnly promises that he always will. On Sophia's birthday, Cyril reassures her that he will always be by her side to protect her at any time and any place before she shyly asks if he will celebrate with her. Cyril smiles warmly and promises to celebrate her birthday this year, next year, and every year that follows while he straightens his suit. He presents a single perfect rose to Lady Sophia as he wishes her a happy 6th birthday. Sophia beams with genuine happiness as she accepts the rose and thanks him, and Cyril feels he has succeeded in winning her trust, although he knows this is only the first step in changing her fate. He realizes his next critical task is to get rid of the maid who constantly harasses Sophia, which has caused her to become isolated and disliked by the other staff in the mansion. A distraught and tearful Sophia runs to Cyril claiming that the head maid was being mean to her again, while he comforts her and gently offers to wipe away her tears. The maid quickly denies the accusation, insisting that Sophia simply tripped and fell while accusing the young lady of lying as other maids whisper about Sophia's supposed dishonesty. The head maid's expression turns sinister as she scolds Sophia for telling lies, leaving the young girl looking shocked and insisting she is telling the truth. Cyril steps protectively in front of Sophia and sternly warns the maid that a servant of the Rosenberg house should never betray their master. The maid dismisses Cyril's intervention, claiming Sophia is merely throwing a tantrum, but Cyril retorts that it's obvious the maid is taking out her own frustrations on the innocent child by cornering her with lies. The maid scoffs, confidently asking who would believe a young boy over a long-serving trusted maid, and smugly declares that the answer is obvious. Cyril calmly replies that the question of who is more trusted is irrelevant because what truly matters is that a servant who betrays their master is unforgivable. Guards suddenly appear and apprehend the bewildered maid, who cries out in shock and demands to know what is happening. Cyril produces an official-looking letter revealing that he and the head butler Cedric have investigated her and found her guilty of embezzlement. The maid is stunned by the accusation of embezzlement, but Cyril tells her it is useless to pretend ignorance because he knows she has been inflating the costs of household supplies. He coldly informs the terrified maid that she will now spend the rest of her life as a criminal slave as she weakly protests that it was only for a small amount. Cyril mockingly questions her definition of a small amount, suggesting her sense of numbers is quite peculiar. He then holds up a document as proof and adds that she also damaged the young lady's reputation by branding her as a liar. He asks her if she still thinks she is more trustworthy than him or the young lady after it has been revealed that she was deceiving everyone and stealing from the household. With a serious expression, Cyril declares that she has betrayed her master's trust in the most fundamental way. The maid's face fills with despair as Cyril announces that her time at the mansion is over. Cyril turns to Sophia and gently reassures her that everything is all right now because the mean maid is gone for good. Overwhelmed with relief, Sophia throws her arms around Cyril in a tight hug. Through tears of gratitude, Sophia thanks Cyril for believing her and always being on her side, and he calmly replies that it was a given. From that day forward, Cyril dedicated himself to raising Sophia to be a dignified lady of the Rosenberg Marquis family, teaching her everything from posture and dance to violin and embroidery. He even taught her magic from his past life and self-defense, and she absorbed all of his teachings without complaint over the next 6 years. Now a graceful young lady, Sophia asks Cyril to brush her hair for her. As he prepares her hairbrush, Cyril notes that her 12th birthday is approaching, and Sophia wonders if her busy parents will be able to celebrate with her. Sophia reassures herself that it is all right if her parents are busy because she has their gifts and messages, and more importantly, she has Cyril by her side. Cyril reflects that the lonely, isolated girl from the game no longer exists, and he tells Sophia that the entire mansion staff joins him in wishing her a happy birthday. Sophia blushes and confesses that having him celebrate with her is what makes her the happiest, and Cyril replies that the pleasure is all his. As he leaves her room for the night, Cyril feels confident that he has prevented her from falling into darkness and has given her the charm to captivate the prince, but he knows one final challenge remains. That challenge is the first prince's upcoming birthday party, where Sophia is fated to meet the second prince just as he falls in love with the main heroine. In the original story, the second prince saves the heroine from an aggressive nobleman at the party, and though they don't learn each other's identities, they feel a connection that deepens when they meet again at the academy. With a fierce look of determination, Cyril vows to completely destroy any chance of that fateful meeting from ever taking place. Standing in the magnificent ballroom, he knows this is the critical moment to secure Sophia's future and ensure the prince is never stolen from her. Sophia, now 12 and dressed in a beautiful gown, asks Cyril why he is walking behind her, reminding him that as her escort he should be walking proudly by her side. Cyril is taken aback by her request, realizing it's highly unconventional for a commoner butler to serve as a noble lady's escort, which is a role usually reserved for family or a fiancé. He notices her anxious expression and deduces that she chose him because she doesn't trust anyone else and feels safer with him by her side. Sophia interrupts his thoughts by turning to him and asking if she looks beautiful. Cyril assures her she is captivatingly beautiful, while Sophia thinks to herself that as long as he sees her that way, no one else's opinion matters. She then asks if he too finds her beautiful, and he confirms with a smile that he has also fallen under her spell, admiring how much she has grown. Nearby guests whisper in admiration about the Marquis's daughter, praising her beauty, intelligence, and mature demeanor. Cyril smiles, feeling a sense of accomplishment that their grand entrance was a success, just as a young man with white hair politely asks to pass. Both Cyril and Sophia are surprised to see it is the second Prince Alforth who is trying to conceal his identity by introducing himself simply as Al. Sophia gracefully curtsies and introduces herself as being from the Rosenberg household. Cyril watches them with pride, thinking that his 6 years of dedicated effort have all led to this moment where Sophia's first love can finally begin. The prince then asks Sophia for a dance, throwing Cyril into a silent panic since she is supposed to dance with her escort first, but refusing a prince could damage her reputation. Sophia glances at Cyril for guidance, and he gives her a subtle nod of encouragement, so she decides to accept. She claims she will dance with the prince for one song and assures Cyril she will return shortly. As they head to the dance floor, Sophia politely tells Sir Al that she looks forward to the dance, and he nervously agrees. Onlookers admire the stunning couple at the center of the ballroom, commenting on their beauty and wondering about the identity of her handsome partner. The two of them dance together gracefully under the admiring gazes of the crowd, while Sophia blushes as she looks at the handsome prince. Cyril watches from a distance as Sophia and the prince dance together, feeling a sense of accomplishment that the villainess who was fated for execution no longer exists. As Sophia happily dances with the prince, Cyril considers his main objective fulfilled, but he then notices a nobleman bothering another young woman and realizes there is still one more thing he needs to do. Cyril observes the situation and reflects that because he successfully changed his lady's fate, he has also spared himself from his own inevitable execution. He steps in to intervene as a nobleman tries to persuade a young woman to leave the party with him, and Cyril firmly tells the man to stop because she is clearly uncomfortable. The nobleman becomes angry and asks what gives Cyril the right to speak to him that way, demanding to know if he was aware that he is the son of Count Reed. Cyril calmly threatens to report the nobleman's behavior directly to his father, which immediately silences the man, who walks away in frustration while Cyril turns to check on the young lady. The girl he rescued is Alicia, the heroine of the Otome game, and Cyril realizes that because he successfully diverted the prince's attention to Sophia, he inadvertently took the prince's place in this key scene. Alicia stammers her thanks, and Cyril checks to see if she is alright, thinking to himself that he couldn't just leave her because he would feel guilty if she ended up turning to the dark side. The young woman shyly introduces herself as Alicia, the daughter of Viscount Lindbergh. Alicia then looks at him with wide, curious eyes and sweetly asks him for his name. Cyril is stunned by her question because he remembers from the game that she and the prince were supposed to part ways without ever learning each other's names. He introduces himself as just Cyril, a butler, hoping to downplay his role, but Alicia seems intrigued by his name. Alicia quickly reassures him that his being a butler doesn't bother her at all since her own family is not from the high nobility, while Cyril apologizes for making her feel awkward. She then explains that she doesn't know anyone else at the party and shyly asks if he would be willing to dance with her. Cyril is surprised by her request because in the original game the heroine's first dance doesn't happen until much later, and it's unusual for a noble's daughter to have never danced before. He knows that a woman asking a man to dance is frowned upon in their society, but he can't bring himself to refuse and embarrass her, so he reluctantly agrees to her request. They begin to dance together, drawing the curious gaze of a nearby nobleman and his smiling companion. Cyril maintains a polite smile but is internally bewildered by the unexpected turn of events. Alicia proves to be quite clumsy and accidentally stomps hard on his foot, but he reassures her that it is okay as she apologizes profusely. She continues to apologize over and over as they stumble through the dance moves, clearly embarrassed by her mistake. To calm her down, Cyril suggests she take a deep breath and then tries to distract her by asking about her family's territory. Alicia's face instantly brightens as she describes her homeland as a beautiful and wonderful place with vast fields of flowers. Cyril feels his heart flutter and tells her that she looks even more wonderful when she smiles, which makes her blush shyly and thank him. As the musicians play, Alicia wonders aloud with genuine concern if the prince also had his feet stepped on during their dance. The music ends with a final flourish, and as the other couples applaud, Cyril gives Alicia a polite bow. Alicia thanks him for the dance, and he responds in kind just as a voice from behind them says, "I finally found you." A breathless Sophia appears looking distressed, and Cyril is surprised, telling her she didn't need to search for him. She sternly reminds him that she had asked him to wait for her and questions why he didn't follow her simple instruction. Cyril immediately kneels to apologize, thinking she is upset about her dance with the prince, and assumes from her aggressive tone that His Highness must have stepped on her feet. Sophia glares down at him with an intense, unsettling expression and angrily demands to know why he won't look at her. Cyril freezes in shock as he realizes her words are the exact same ones she speaks to the prince in the game just before her descent into darkness, but now they are aimed directly at him. A horrifying thought crosses his mind as he wonders if he has somehow managed to steal the prince's role in this twisted story. With a pained expression, Sophia asks him to tell her it's just her imagination and reminds him of his promise to always stay by her side. Her jealousy erupts as she asks if the girl he was dancing with is better than her, and Cyril frantically tries to explain that he was only helping Alicia out of a difficult situation. Alicia confirms his story, but Sophia only latches onto the idea that Cyril is a kind boy, which sends a wave of panic through him as he realizes his worst fears are coming true. Sophia looks at him with a possessive glint in her eye and says she would prefer he reserve his kindness only for her, causing Cyril to choke in disbelief. He now understands without a doubt that Sophia has developed romantic feelings for him, a love that is doomed by their difference in social status. The dark side flag he thought he had destroyed has reappeared with a vengeance as he sees Sophia is now intensely jealous of the heroine. Cyril tries to take a deep breath and calmly assess the chaotic situation he has created. He briefly thinks that even if she turns to the dark side, she is skilled enough to eliminate her target without getting caught. Then the terrifying reality of his situation hits him like a ton of bricks as he realizes that since the heroine would never fall for him, he is the one who will be annihilated by Sophia's jealousy. He frantically recalls that in all the game's routes Sophia becomes jealous and commits evil acts no matter who the love interest is, which means she will inevitably turn to the dark side. He understands with dawning horror that by taking the prince's place he has made himself the sole target of her rage. The story ends with Cyril looking utterly terrified as he realizes he is the only one who will be eliminated. Cyril reflects on his reincarnation into the world of a popular otome game called The Espressivo of Light and Darkness, where he was reborn as the butler to the story's Villainess. He recalls how he used his knowledge of the game to prevent the various flags that would lead Lady Sophia to her execution, which was originally set in motion after she and the prince fell in love at a party. Despite his best efforts to steer events correctly, the party ended with the heroine Alicia asking him for a dance while a shocked Sophia demanded to know why he wasn't looking at her. Cyril wonders with a grimace how things went so wrong and why Sophia became so focused on him instead of the prince as he stands outside the Grand Rosenberg mansion. He politely knocks and enters the study to meet with Sophia's father. Inside the study, Grieve, the stern head of the Rosenberg family, is busy writing at his desk. Grieve asks Cyril why he waited to interrupt since he knew he was there, and Cyril respectfully explains that he saw his master glance his way and knew his presence was already acknowledged. Grieve seems impressed by the boy's sharp perception, attributing it to his training as a personal butler since the age of 6 before getting down to business regarding the events of the party. Grieve clarifies that he wishes to discuss Cyril's role as Sophia's escort, making the young butler visibly nervous. Grieve offers his thanks for Cyril's service, but Cyril humbly declines any reward, insisting that he failed in his duties because Sophia had to leave the party prematurely. Cyril takes the blame for the incident, explaining that his actions caused Sophia to feel unwell and ultimately brought disgrace upon her. Grieve casually dismisses his concerns, saying that many of the other children also left early and that her departure was not a problem. In fact, Grieve explains that her leaving was the right decision because her dance with the second prince was drawing far too much attention from the other guests. When Cyril asks why this was an issue, Grieve passionately exclaims with fatherly pride that it was because his beautiful daughter was dancing with the grace of an angel. The proud father continues to excitedly repeat the word, angel, completely lost in his admiration for his daughter. Cyril states that he is relieved to hear Sophia's reputation remains intact, but he still feels he failed his duties as her escort. Grieve looks at Cyril with a thoughtful expression and remarks that his maturity sometimes makes him question if he is truly just a child. Moving on to a more serious topic, Grieve asks Cyril for his impression of the second prince. Cyril is caught off guard, realizing the question is more than just a simple inquiry about the prince's fascination with Sophia's beauty. Grieve admits he is considering a potential betrothal between Sophia and the second prince and wants to hear Cyril's opinion to help him decide. Cyril feels it is not his place to comment, but Grieve insists that his input will be valuable for his final decision. Cyril is torn between his original plan to unite Sophia and the prince and his new awareness of Sophia's feelings for him, which he cannot bear to betray. He reminds himself that his primary role is that of an apprentice personal butler. With renewed conviction, he tells Grieve that his duty is to lead Sophia to happiness and therefore her own feelings on a potential marriage should be the first thing to be considered. Grieve lets out an intrigued, who, clearly surprised by the young butler's bold response. He questions the idea of asking his daughter's opinion on a strategic marriage, and Cyril firmly states that his only wish is for his lady's happiness. Grieve smirks and calls the answer utterly dull, yet a faint magical glow emanates from his hand. In an unexpected turn of events, Grieve declares that Cyril has passed his test and officially appoints him as a full-fledged personal butler. Cyril is momentarily stunned before humbly kneeling to accept the promotion. Grieve explains that it was a test of his character and now he feels he can entrust his daughter to Cyril's care before presenting him with an entrance notice to Lonbell Royal Academy so he can accompany Sophia. Cyril accepts the papers without hesitation, declaring that he will become a student to remain by his lady's side because he is her personal butler. Sometime later, Cyril helps Sophia study for her exams, praising her for correctly applying a complex formula. He knows that while passing the exam will be easy for her, she must achieve the highest scores to uphold her family's honor. Cyril reflects that he has no time to celebrate his promotion because the real challenges begin at the academy, where he must guide Sophia's path to happiness by steering her back towards the prince. He knows the academy is the perfect place to correct their course, but he must remain vigilant about one particular threat. He understands that the presence of the heroine Alicia will only accelerate the rise of Sophia's dark flags. Thankfully, he recalls a side story from the game that explains Alicia joins the academy later, so she will not be in the junior division. Sophia snaps him out of his thoughts and playfully asks if he is the one who is nervous about the upcoming exams. He jests in reply and she teases him back, suggesting that he is the one on shaky ground, which makes him realize she is no longer bothered by the events of the party. As they head to the academy, Cyril knows the next 3 years will be crucial in setting things right. On the day of the entrance exam, they arrive at the magnificent L'Anbel Royal Academy. Cyril tells Sophia he needs to check the seating arrangements and she eagerly asks to join him. He insists she wait with her maid Ruche for safety reasons and then hurries off into the crowded building. As he makes his way through the throng of people, he finds their assigned classroom at the far end of the hall. While navigating the crowd, he accidentally bumps into a young maid and quickly apologizes. The maid politely insists it was her fault, and after confirming neither is hurt, she excuses herself to return to her mistress. Cyril returns to Sophia and Ruche, and from a distance he sees the same maid he bumped into now speaking with Alicia, who is being congratulated for convincing her parents to let her attend. Alicia smiles with quiet determination, saying that this was something she could not give up on. Cyril informs Sophia that they will be in the same classroom for the test, and she immediately asks him with a hint of suspicion about the girl he was looking at earlier. A flustered Cyril tries to dismiss her concern by saying it was just a harmless maid, but Sophia clenches her fists, showing that his answer did not reassure her at all. Cyril watches her with concern, thinking that he may have made her too anxious since she is not accustomed to being in such public settings. He then promises her that there is no need to worry because he will always be there to protect her, and she asks him to confirm if he will truly always be by her side. Cyril gently takes her hand and reaffirms his promise to always protect her no matter what happens, just as he did when they were younger. Sophia looks at him with complete trust as she holds his hand tightly and declares that she will never forget his promise. Now feeling much more secure, Sophia thanks him with a warm smile and suggests they should head into the classroom for the exam. Inside the classroom, they are met with a scene of noisy confusion as nobles and commoners are mixed together, asking each other questions about the unfamiliar rules. Sophia and her maid Ruche are both surprised by the arrangement, with Ruche remarking that it's a very rare sight to see the social classes integrated like this. Cyril observes that the academy's rule against flaunting social status appears to be strictly enforced right from the entrance exam. He internally reflects that even with such rules in place, one always has to decide whether to treat someone as an equal or assert their own status, just as other students begin to notice Sophia's presence. The other students are buzzing with excitement and nervousness about being in the same school as Lady Sophia, and Cyril proudly notes that she has already earned their respect just as the exam is about to begin. With a soft blush and a sly smile, Sophia confesses to Cyril that it has always been her dream to spend her life at the academy with him. Cyril is completely stunned by her heartfelt confession, and the paper in his hand crumbles as he stares at her in disbelief. He tries to regain his composure by jokingly reminding her that it's not the time for such things as they are about to take an exam, but she just smiles playfully at his reaction. Their conversation is interrupted by another student who recognizes Sophia as the daughter of Marquis Rosenberg. The boy rudely confronts them, demanding to know who they are and stating that he will not tolerate their discourtesy. Cyril instinctively moves to intervene, but Sophia calmly stops him and reminds him of the academy's rules, implying that he has done nothing wrong. With a subtle wink, she explains to Cyril that for two people to truly be on equal ground, the person of higher status must first grant their approval, which leaves her maid Ruche amazed by their sophisticated exchange. Sophia turns to the boy and coolly asks for his name and his business with her, and he confidently introduces himself as Raymond. In a shocking announcement, Raymond declares his bold intention to become her personal butler right here and now. Sophia glances thoughtfully at Cyril, her current personal butler, before telling Raymond that she is not in a position to make such a decision. Raymond quickly clarifies that he wishes to be appointed as her personal butler specifically for their time at the academy. Cyril explains to a curious Sophia that students in the servant courses often serve noble students as part of their curriculum. Raymond confidently states that he understands her position and then proposes a challenge. Sophia firmly cuts him off, declaring with unwavering loyalty that Cyril is the only personal butler she will ever need. Raymond recognizes Cyril's name, having heard rumors of the exceptionally talented butler who began serving at the age of 6, and Sophia proudly confirms that he is indeed her most exceptional butler. He scoffs at the idea that a sheltered boy like Cyril could be better than him and vows to prove his own superiority during the entrance exam. Raymond then formally requests that if he proves himself to be superior, she must appoint him as her new personal butler. Sophia calmly agrees to his challenge, stating that she will appoint him as her butler if she deems him to be better for the job, which makes him grin triumphantly. Raymond gives Cyril a smug and challenging look as they prepare to take their seats for the exam. As he walks past Cyril, he confidently states that he will use this exam to prove once and for all that he is the one most fit to be her personal butler. Ruche whispers her concern to Sophia about the promise she just made, but Cyril advises her to consider the exact words his lady used. Cyril explains to the maid that Sophia's promise was cleverly worded to be based on her own subjective opinion of who is better, not simply on the test results, meaning she was never in any danger of having to replace him. Sophia admits with a pout that listening to Raymond belittle Cyril has thoroughly soured her mood. Cyril agrees that he also found it quite irritating that Raymond would imply she is a poor judge of character, and Sophia tells him that it is now up to him to prove how wrong he is. With a dazzling and confident smile, Sophia commands Cyril to show Raymond and the entire academy that her butler is the best in the world, and he accepts her challenge with a determined grin. The maid Ruche is shocked by Sophia's command, realizing it means Cyril must score incredibly high on the entrance exam to prove his greatness to the entire academy. Sophia wonders aloud if that's even possible for him, but Cyril confidently reassures her that it is, while internally reflecting that his knowledge from a past life's magic academy makes the written test easy. Cyril explains that the student with the highest exam score becomes the new student representative, and if he performs at his best he might take that position from her. With a charming smile, Sophia tells him she has no interest in a position given out of pity and encourages him not to hold back. An announcer declares that the exam will begin in 10 minutes, and as Sophia urges Cyril to go, she looks ready for the challenge ahead. Cyril understands that while his wish is for his lady to take the top spot, her true desire is for him to perform at his absolute best, so he instructs a supportive Ruche to wait for them outside. As they sit down for the written portion of the exam, Cyril realizes that if he intentionally holds back to let Sophia win, it would go against her wishes. With a determined smile, the exam begins, and Cyril picks up his pen ready to face the challenge she has set for him. Later, during the practical violin exam, Sophia introduces herself as examinee number 16 and gives Cyril a playful, challenging glance before she begins. She plays the violin with beautiful and effortless skill, her serene expression reflecting her complete mastery of the instrument. As she finishes her performance with a graceful flourish, she politely thanks the examiners for their time. The examiners applaud enthusiastically, and Cyril rushes over to congratulate her by playfully ruffling her hair. She winks and tells him he doesn't need to take care of her during the exam, but he reaffirms his unwavering loyalty as her exclusive butler. When examinee number 17 is called, Cyril borrows a violin from another student, certain he will score perfectly on the written exam to make up for any shortcomings here. Cyril introduces himself to the examiners and takes his place, knowing that the violin test will be his most difficult challenge. He begins to play for the stern-faced examiners. He internally admits that despite having the technical skills down, he completely lacks any natural musical talent. His performance is clearly inferior to Sophia's, producing screeching sounds that make the examiners wince in disapproval. Suddenly, one of the violin strings snaps with a loud twang, shocking everyone in the room. An examiner jumps to his feet in alarm and shouts that the string has broken. Cyril stays surprisingly calm even though his E string snapped during a critical part of the song. With quick thinking and a flash of inspiration, he decides to continue playing by using the A string instead, which leaves the examiners looking completely bewildered. The examiners give him a round of applause, praising him not only for his technical skill but also for the incredible mental strength he showed by not faltering under pressure. Sophia pouts, playfully complaining that she thought she had finally won in the violin exam, and calls his unexpected success cheating, while he just humbly claims it was luck. After the dance portion of the exam, Cyril compliments Sophia on her beautiful performance with her senior partner. She thanks him but gives all the credit to her excellent dance partner. Cyril observes that the seniors acting as partners seem to have a similar rhythm, and that Sophia's partner was a particularly good match for her, making the dance look effortless. Sophia seems intrigued by the idea that her partner was similar to him, but then playfully teases that at this rate she might actually beat him in the overall score. When it's Cyril's turn, he notices that his assigned partner, a pale girl named Fall, seems very nervous. He politely introduces himself to Fall, and she shyly returns the greeting. They begin to dance together, and Cyril expertly leads her through a series of complex and graceful turns. He is impressed by her ability to follow his lead perfectly and realizes she must be a very skilled dancer on par with Sophia herself. He is puzzled by her talent, wondering why such a skilled individual never appeared in the original game, and she teases him for being distracted. She smiles at him sweetly, her cheeks flushing with a light blush. Fall remarks that while the rumored Sophia is impressive, Cyril himself is quite something, and asks if he was the one who taught Sophia how to dance. He asks her why she thinks that. And she explains that she gets the feeling that she and Cyril are the same, which triggers a shocking realization in him. With a confident smile, Fall suddenly takes the lead in their dance, pulling him into a new sequence of steps and leaving him utterly stunned. The examiners look on with confused expressions as they witness the unprecedented shift in the dance's lead. Cyril is momentarily panicked, realizing he needs to regain control of the dance before the examiners notice, but then decides against it after a glance at Sophia's hopeful face. Fall is surprised that he has stopped resisting her lead. She reminds him that the man is supposed to lead and that he might get a bad score, but he says he has a different idea of what leading truly means. He asks her what her idea is, and she seems taken aback by the question. He knows that to guide his lady away from her dark fate, he cannot simply lead her by the hand down a path he chooses. He must be prepared to walk with her even if she chooses a path covered in thorns. His true duty as a butler, he decides, is to make his partner shine, and so he tells Fall that if she intends to lead, he will follow her completely. He asks her to let him help her shine even more brightly, even if it means bending the rules of logic itself. Fall looks at him with surprise and then apologizes for testing him, offering to hand the lead back over to him. She spins away gracefully and Cyril accepts her offer, responding with, "Your wish is my command," as he prepares to resume the lead. His eyes widen in shock as he processes the incredible exchange that just occurred. Fall's movements become a dazzling display of skill far beyond what he could have imagined. Cyril quickly explains to the concerned examiners that the young lady has fainted and he is only trying to protect her from the fall. The examiner expresses her concern and Cyril reassures her that the girl isn't hurt, but suggests that her personal maid or butler should be called. A maid rushes to the girl's side, calling her Lady Pamela, as she gently tries to wake her. The maid introduces herself and agrees to take her mistress to the infirmary after Cyril notes that Pamela is still breathing and seems conscious despite her pale appearance. Pamela's maid thanks Cyril profusely for his help and promises to properly show her gratitude at a later time. Cyril apologizes to the examiner for interrupting the test and requests that the other students be given a chance to retake it. The examiner kindly agrees to a retest but is surprised when Cyril states that he has forfeited his own right to a retake because he abandoned his partner mid-dance. The examiner looks at Cyril with a mixture of surprise and admiration for his strong sense of responsibility. The examiner agrees to his terms but decides to only have his score as a penalty, and Fall apologizes to him for the trouble she caused. Fall then tells him that she doesn't think what he did was rude at all and expresses her disappointment that they couldn't finish their dance together. With a final wink and a hopeful wish that he passes the exam without any trouble, Fall leaves Cyril standing alone in the hallway. Sophia approaches Cyril and he immediately apologizes for failing to give his best performance as he had promised. She asks if he thinks she is there to scold him and then gently tells him to raise his head. Sophia pouts playfully, showing her disappointment in him. With a knowing smile, she points out that while he did his best, he also intentionally used the interruption to lower his own score. Cyril tries to feign ignorance, but it's clear she has seen right through his plan. A few days later, while waiting for the exam results, Sophia suggests they check on the scores even though it usually takes several weeks for them to be posted. They head to the results board where a crowd has already gathered as one student explains that he saw the examiners himself and understands why the scores are already available. Cyril is not surprised to see the crowd and they make their way to the front where they see Sophia has achieved perfect scores in all her practical exams. Sophia points out his score, but he is more focused on hers until she redirects his attention to his own shockingly low result. Cyril is stunned to see his dance score is only 51 and he remembers the examiner's promise to have it. Cyril is equally shocked to realize that without the penalty his score would have been an incredible 102, easily surpassing Sophia's perfect score. Cyril apologizes to her for tarnishing her perfect record with his own low score. Raymond is seen as he calls out to Sophia. He approaches Sophia with a letter containing his own exam scores, ready to make his case for becoming her butler. Cyril politely intercepts the letter, insisting on checking it for any potential danger before handing it over to Sophia. Sophia is impressed by Raymond's high scores, and Cyril acknowledges that based on previous years his scores would likely be enough to earn him the top spot. He also admits that Raymond is talented enough to be considered for a butler position even though he has no intention of letting him take his place. Sophia congratulates Raymond on his perfect scores in all the practical exams, but he humbly insists he is no match for her. Cyril mentions his dance score of 51 and Raymond bursts into laughter, mocking him for having the audacity to serve as Sophia's butler with such a pitiful score. Other students who witnessed the incident try to explain the reason for his low score, but Raymond dismisses their attempts to defend him. Cyril calmly concedes that in terms of their dance scores Raymond is the clear winner. Raymond is surprised by Cyril's unexpectedly gracious response, and Cyril smiles, telling him that he has no intention of giving up his position as Sophia's personal butler. With a look of fierce determination, Raymond declares that he will take the position from Cyril within 1 year. A few weeks later, their official admission notices arrive, and Sophia playfully sticks her tongue out at Cyril, who is still lamenting his 49-point deduction. Sophia's notice confirms she achieved near-perfect scores in all her subjects, securing the top seat with only a single point shy of perfection. A maid gently brushes Sophia's hair as she sits peacefully in her room. Cyril and Sophia ride in a carriage on their way to a clothing store to have his academy uniform tailored. The school's rule of equal treatment for all students regardless of their social status is still in effect even for this social studies assignment, which requires Sophia to visit a commoner's shop. Cyril reaches out his hand to help Sophia out of the carriage, but she just continues to hold it as they walk. He nervously points out that she is still holding his hand. Sophia blushes and asks if it's a problem, while Cyril explains that his role as her butler doesn't automatically make him her escort. An argument erupts in the shop as a nobleman berates the owner for not having his son's uniform ready in time for the academy's entrance ceremony, while Cyril and Sophia observe from the entrance. Cyril notes with disapproval that the nobleman's servant did not make a reservation beforehand and wonders if it's the family's policy to let their children handle such matters themselves. A shop attendant warmly welcomes them, and Cyril encourages Sophia to take the lead in this hands-on learning experience. The nobleman's son angrily calls out to the attendant, noticing her attention shifting to the new customers. He demands to know why they can get a uniform made when his own request was denied, and the attendant calmly explains that Cyril and Sophia had made a reservation. The boy's butler tries to restrain him, but he angrily insists on his status as the son of Count Reed. Sophia quietly asks Cyril to make them stop. With a confident smile, Sophia steps forward and tells the boy to refrain from such behavior because power should not be brandished without a good reason. The boy is initially stunned into silence by her radiant and commanding presence. His attendant quickly whispers in his ear, revealing that the young lady is none other than Sophia, the daughter of a powerful marquis. The boy and his attendant immediately bow in apology, begging for forgiveness for their rude behavior as Sophia tells them to wait. Cyril explains that he has reserved 2 sets of uniforms for himself and 3 for his lady. Sophia then graciously offers one of her reserved sets to the stunned boy. The boy gratefully accepts her offer as Sophia explains that the extra set is just a spare and not essential for the entrance ceremony. Cyril realizes that the boy's family had likely already prepared his uniform, and this whole situation was just a test of his character. The boy now owes Sophia a favor, and his butler and the shop attendant's calm demeanor throughout the ordeal suddenly makes perfect sense. Sophia asks the shop attendant if she can make the uniform for him, and Cyril privately considers the possibility that she knowingly created this situation to put the boy in her debt. The attendant leads Sophia to the fitting room to take her measurements, and she says a brief farewell to Cyril. In the fitting room, Sophia is surprised to see Alicia, the heroine from the Otome game. Alicia apologizes for not recognizing her sooner and explains that she remembers seeing her dance at the prince's birthday party, where she felt like a clumsy burden to her own partner. Sophia reassures her that she looked very nice, and Alicia credits her wonderful partner for making their dance so magnificent. Sophia's expression hardens slightly as she replies with a simple, "Right," and a tailor asks Cyril to check the sleeves of the uniform they are working on. Cyril strikes up a conversation with the tailor, learning that Alicia is also a freshman at the academy, and begins to hope that she and Sophia might become friends. Back in the carriage with their new uniforms, Sophia feels that their enrollment in the academy is finally becoming real, and Cyril agrees. He knows he has a lot of work ahead of him to support his lady's daily life and somehow repair her relationship with the second prince. However, he reminds himself that the most important thing is to ensure that Sophia genuinely enjoys her time at the academy. As they are talking, Sophia suddenly asks him why he is staring at her face. Their carriage comes to an abrupt halt, and Cyril instinctively pulls Sophia into his arms to protect her. The driver calls out in apology, explaining that some children suddenly jumped out in front of them. Cyril's expression darkens as he sees the word children and senses that something is wrong. He instructs Sophia to stay in the carriage for her safety and steps out to assess the situation while noticing 2 suspicious-looking men observing them from a distance. Cyril realizes that the children were used as a distraction to lure him out of the carriage, creating a perfect opportunity for an attack. He approaches the 2 frightened children and asks if they are all right, and they defensively ask if he is an enemy. Cyril calmly replies that he is not their enemy, and the children ask if he is one of the people chasing them. He realizes that the suspicious men are not targeting him and Sophia but are actually after the two children. He asks the children why they are being chased, and the boy tearfully explains that his sister is in danger. He reveals that their parents sold his sister to the Dark Guild, and they are now running away from them. Cyril is shocked to learn that they are from the slums, a common but dark element in the world of the Otome game. He understands that just as the gaudy nobles represent the light, the Dark Guild, and the slums represent the ever-present darkness, that if this is a story event from the game, he knows he must handle it with extreme care because the Dark Guild was a key factor in his own fated ruin. Sophia calls out from the carriage asking if the children are okay. The boy desperately pleads with Cyril to help them, and Cyril realizes he can no longer pretend this is not his problem, but he tells Sophia that the decision of whether or not to help them is ultimately up to her. She looks at him with confusion, and he explains that as the daughter of a marquis she must learn to accept the harsh realities of her world, that he tells her that sometimes a leader must sacrifice the few to save the many, and that while saving these two children is a noble act, it is ultimately just a drop in the ocean of suffering in their country, that he bluntly calls the act of saving them a form of hypocrisy as it risks the safety of everyone for the sake of two individuals and serves only to satisfy their own sense of righteousness. The boy begs them to save his sister, pleading that the kind lady must be able to help them. The boy's desperate plea hangs in the air as he begs them to help. With a determined look in her eyes, Sophia makes her decision. She asks Cyril to help them. She acknowledges that her actions may be hypocritical and conceited, but she cannot simply look away when she has the power to save someone within her reach. She then reminds Cyril of his own words, telling him that if her words have the power to decide, then she is deciding to help. Cyril is taken aback by her newfound resolve, seeing that she is no longer the young girl who blindly followed his lead. With a proud smile he bows to her and accepts her command. He turns to the children and in the name of his lady he promises to protect them. The girl finally speaks her brother's name in relief, and he embraces her happily. Cyril knows that by helping them he is essentially stealing from the powerful and dangerous Dark Guild, a problem he cannot afford to leave unresolved. He decides that he must pay a visit to the Dark Guild's headquarters in the slums. A few hours later, two boys discuss the strange events of the day, noting that a high-ranking noble took two slum kids home with her. One of the boys, a blonde-haired youth with a confident smirk, comments that her actions are almost too good to be true. His companion suggests it could be a trap, but the first boy dismisses the idea with a casual, "Dunno." The blonde boy closes a pocket watch and declares that they must discover her true intentions, because if she is genuinely on the commoners' side, they must win her over before the elites do. He looks out the window with a determined expression, ready to see what comes next. A new character named Liber, one of the game's capture targets, is introduced, and he looks out a window with a confident smile, promising to see Sophia Rosenberg in school soon. Cyril stands in the heart of the slums, where he knows there must be a Dark Guild base nearby, and he can hear the hushed whispers of the locals as they watch him with suspicion. A shadowy figure in a fedora warns Cyril that this is no place for a young boy and advises him to leave before he gets into trouble. Cyril confidently introduces himself as a butler from the esteemed Rosenberg house and explains that he has come to discuss the recent case involving the two siblings. The man scoffs at the idea of negotiating with a child, but Cyril calmly counters that if he wishes to speak with his very busy lady, he must come to the mansion. With a sly smile, Cyril reminds the man that just as he is a representative, so too should his own leader come alone. The man reluctantly agrees and leads Cyril to a nearby building, remarking that he truly is just a young boy. Cyril finds himself face to face with Nameless, the intimidating guild master, who sits with a woman on his lap and confirms that he already knows why the young butler is here. Cyril is unfazed by the guild master's unexpectedly polite demeanor. He quickly deduces that the muscular man in front of him is merely a body double, and the real Nameless is the man standing silently behind him. Cyril recalls from the game that Nameless is a former noble who was stripped of his status after being framed, now leading a life of thievery and harboring a deep hatred for the powerful nobles who wronged him. He is confident that as long as he can make Nameless understand his argument, they can avoid any unnecessary conflict. A woman from the guild approaches Cyril and playfully offers to take care of him until he gets back home. Cyril politely declines her advances and gets straight to the point, asking if there is any chance of them returning the girl who ran away. He clarifies that he has no intention of interfering with their human trafficking business, but his lady has already promised to take care of the girl, so returning her is not an option. He places a stack of coins on the table and offers to buy the girl's freedom, understanding that the guild currently owns the rights to her. He clarifies that he is not actually buying her, but rather politely asking for the rights to her to be transferred to them. The guild members are amused by his attempt at a negotiation, and one of the women examines the single gold coin he has offered. Nameless understands Cyril's intention but refuses the offer. The guild master then makes a counteroffer of 30 gold coins, shocking Cyril and the woman beside him. Cyril calmly accepts the offer without hesitation, and the guild master slams the coins down on the table in a show of power. As the coins are being counted, the Nameless quietly asks Cyril what they plan to do with the siblings. The body double explains that human trafficking is an essential part of the slums economy and they cannot simply let the siblings go for such an outrageous price. Cyril interrupts their conversation and proposes a new plan to raise the siblings as loyal servants of the Rosenberg house, ensuring they will never betray his lady. The guild master agrees to the deal, but as Cyril is about to leave, he stops him with one final question. He asks if Cyril plans to save the children while abandoning their parents who still have outstanding debts. Cyril confidently explains that his previous statement about raising them as loyal servants was meant to imply that their parents' debts would also be taken care of. He looks at Nameless with a challenging gaze and asks if he had expected too much from him. The real Nameless looks at Cyril with a new level of respect, and his body double glares at him with renewed intensity. The body double violently slams his hand on the table, furiously demanding to know how a young boy dared to speak to him in such a manner. As the bald man expresses his anger, the real Nameless places a restraining hand on his shoulder, causing the agitated man to look back in surprise. Then the body double begrudgingly tells Cyril that they will accept the deal as it is, his irritated expression clearly showing his displeasure with the arrangement. Cyril smiles warmly and thanks them, expressing his sincere feeling that they will all enjoy a lasting and prosperous relationship from this day forward. From an unseen location, a voice comments on the encounter, remarking with amusement what a cheeky and audacious brat Cyril is. After the boy's departure, the group discusses their impressions of him, with the woman remarking that she thought he was rather cute, while the body double in the hat observes that the boy completely ignored her, which the body double sees as a positive sign that he isn't easily swayed by a woman's charms. The body double reflects on the deal, admitting that while it mostly went according to their plan, he had a moment of panic when he first heard that a noble had taken the children, but is now relieved that they have successfully gained a connection to a powerful marquis. The real Nameless agrees with this assessment but introduces a crucial point they overlooked, reminding them that children never forget their parents and can be easily won back with a show of parental love, all while noting the significant fact that the boy had 30 gold coins ready for payment. With a sudden, chilling insight, the real Nameless declares that Cyril saw right through their entire scheme from the very beginning, understanding that the children's parents were the key to their whole plan. A diagram illustrates the Dark Guild's original strategy to use the parents' debt as leverage to force the children into becoming spies for them against the Rosenberg family, but it then shows how the boy completely dismantled this by paying off the debt with 30 gold coins, thereby removing the guild's leverage and creating a direct, beneficial connection for himself. The body double scoffs at Cyril's move, dismissing him as a naive brat and confidently stating that if things don't go their way, they can simply break their end of the deal, which would spell the end for him. However, the real Nameless disagrees with this simplistic view, countering that if the boy were just a normal kid, it would be that simple, but the look in his eyes suggests he can see right through them. He further explains that Cyril is a monster wearing a child's skin, evidenced by his bold declaration that he would raise the children to be completely loyal servants, which shows an unnerving confidence that they would never betray the Rosenberg family even if the guild used their parents as leverage. The body double is struck with a sudden, shocking realization as the real Nameless confirms this interpretation, leaving him to process the fact that this means there is no longer any reason for them to take the parents in. As the group tries to understand the new circumstances, with the woman admitting she has no idea what is happening, the real Nameless clarifies the Cyril's true message, explaining that he is instructing them to ensure the parents live to see their children again, subverting their expectations of dealing with bad parents who would burden their offspring. Adjusting his glasses with a knowing smile, the real Nameless concludes that he is willing to respect Cyril for understanding the dark side of their country, remarking that it seems they will indeed get along for a very long time. The scene shifts, offering a brief glimpse of the dilapidated rooftops of a poor and struggling district. Then, the setting changes dramatically to the grand and opulent entrance hall of the Landbell Royal Academy, where Cyril, now dressed in a school uniform, stands and decides his preparations are good enough for the entrance ceremony. Cyril places a hand over his heart and reaffirms his purpose, noting that while the path here wasn't easy, his academy life is finally starting, and it is time to devote himself fully to supporting his lady. He looks up the grand staircase towards Sophia waiting for him, and he acknowledges her presence, stating that he has been waiting for her. Sophia looks down at him with a blush and shyly asks for his opinion on how she looks in her dress. Cyril responds with a poetic compliment, telling her that any person who saw her would surely question the rumors about a certain saint who graced the ballroom, implying her beauty surpasses even that of legends. Sophia, however, presses him further with a flushed face, making it clear that she is not asking about what other people might think, but specifically wants to hear his personal opinion, Cyril's opinion. Understanding that for someone in her high position, simple flattery might seem meaningless, Cyril thoughtfully observes that no one is looking before pointing out that her hair ornament is a little bit off. He then closes the distance between them and pulls her into a gentle, reassuring hug, whispering into her ear that there is absolutely no way his lady, the one he has raised, wouldn't be cute. Completely flustered and blushing deeply, Sophia can only stammer his name, Cyril, while he smiles and playfully brings a finger to his lips, telling her that what he just said is a secret between them. A radiant and happy Sophia quickly agrees to his request, and Cyril then asks if he may have the honor of escorting his lady to her carriage. Cyril formally takes her hand in his, and together they turn and walk towards their destination, ready to begin their new life at L'Anbel Royal Academy. The Academy's headmaster begins the entrance ceremony with a warm welcome to the new students who have all passed the difficult entrance exams. The student representative welcomes Sophia to the stage with an outstretched hand praising her for her efforts. The long-awaited entrance ceremony at L'Anbel Royal Academy officially begins, and Cyril reflects that his academy life is finally starting, but he has no time to rejoice. The students whisper among themselves, surprised that the freshman representative is the Marquis's daughter and not one of the elitist children. Cyril knows he must spare no effort to ensure his lady has a peaceful academy life and avoid her execution by navigating the two opposing factions at the academy: the elitists who favor a noble-centered society and the plebeians who seek equality. He remembers a route in the game where Sophia became a radical elitist due to the maid's harassment and was ultimately executed after being exploited by her own faction, so he knows that maintaining neutrality is the safest option. His second challenge is to solve the problem of him being in the prince's position, as Sophia should originally be in love with the second prince, but he is relieved that the heroine won't enroll for another 3 years. He listens as Sophia, the freshman representative, begins her speech, and he is confident in her abilities because she is naturally talented and he has already helped her prepare. With a bright smile, Sophia begins her speech by stating that originally she should not be the one standing on the stage, which leaves Cyril momentarily stunned. She speaks of her lonely and miserable childhood, believing her parents didn't love her and being constantly harassed by her maids, which shocks and confuses Cyril, who wonders what she is saying. She then reveals that it was thanks to a kind person who reached out to her and taught her countless things that she is able to stand here today, and more importantly, she realized that her parents truly did love her. She concludes her speech by promising to do her best as a substitute for the person who truly deserves this honor, which earns her the admiration of the crowd. Cyril realizes with a grimace that her emotionally charged speech has turned into a chaotic mess that could be misinterpreted as a declaration against the commoners. The teacher announces that the students will now head to their designated classrooms, and Cyril finds himself in Class 1A of the servant course, where he is immediately hit by a paper fan. A boy scolds him for staring with jealousy at a girl he just met, and another girl apologizes for his behavior, explaining that he is just jealous of Cyril's good grades. The boy introduces himself as Luke and the girl as Chloe, both of whom are in the servant course, and Cyril politely returns their greeting. They all take their seats and the teacher begins the class. As expected of the top class, the students are already seated and attentive as the teacher begins his lecture on the 6 courses offered at the academy, which include the servant course, the general course, and the noble course. He slams his book down on the desk with a loud thud and announces that Class 1A is for the top elites who are already considered full-fledged servants. He then challenges the students, asking if they truly believe their skills are worthy of this honor just because they passed the junior division exams. A student stands up to object, and the teacher angrily confronts him. The teacher warns the student that his honed skills are only considered valuable because he is still a child and that people are more tolerant of his mistakes. The teacher then calls out the student's less-than-perfect scores in the entrance exam and challenges him to justify his arrogance. The students are shocked to learn that their strict teacher is none other than Tristan, a legendary former student who aced all his exams and enrolled as the top student. Cyril is amazed to realize that their teacher is not only a legendary butler who was scouted by the royal family, but also one of the capture targets from the Otome game. The student who had challenged Tristan earlier now bows deeply in apology, but the teacher humbly insists that he is just a butler and now a teacher. Tristan explains to the confused student that he was once just like them. He confesses to the class that as a student he was an arrogant brat who thought he was special, but in the real world he failed repeatedly and wasted a lot of effort. He then reassures them that he will help them with any messes they make at the academy and encourages them to take on any challenges they want. The student is moved to tears by his teacher's honesty, and the entire class is filled with a newfound respect and admiration for him. Tristan announces that in 1 month a welcome party for the freshmen will be held, and the students of Class 1A have been given the honor of setting it up. He challenges them to show their true skills, as pretty much everyone in the academy will be attending the party. The class erupts in a chorus of enthusiastic cheers, ready to take on the challenge. Cyril, however, is more pensive, realizing the high difficulty of the task since even the academy's nobles will be in attendance. Tristan then asks for Cyril by name, and the young butler raises his hand to identify himself. The teacher mentions that he heard Cyril put on quite a show during the exam, but Cyril feigns ignorance of the matter. Tristan then declares that since Cyril is the top student in the class, he will be in charge of leading them to a successful party, but is interrupted by a loud clatter. Raymond, who also happens to be in Class 1A, angrily demands to know why Cyril is the top student when he only ranked second in the whole academy. He points out with outrage that Cyril only scored a 51 on the dance exam. The other students begin to whisper among themselves about how he could be the top student with such a low score, and Tristan grins mischievously as he asks Cyril to explain. Cyril knows that telling the truth would harm his lady's reputation, so he cleverly dodges the question by stating that he is not an examiner and therefore has no knowledge of the grading process. Tristan seems to accept his answer and tells him to prove his skills by setting up the party, which prompts the other students to protest. He then asks for all those who disagree with his decision to raise their hands, and a sea of hands shoots up. Tristan announces that those who raise their hands will be in charge of the preparations in the courtyard, while Cyril remains the top student. He then slyly suggests to the dissenting students that they could gain immense pleasure by making the courtyard setup even better than the main hall. The student who had initially challenged him now understands Tristan's true intention, and a wide grin spreads across his face. He vows to peel off Cyril's false disguise, and another student chimes in that it should be we, not just I. During break time, the other students complain about their terrible top student, and Cyril knows he cannot afford to lose to the courtyard team, as it would stain his lady's reputation. He gathers the remaining students and asks them to share what they excel at and what they would like to do for the party. Luke then asks Cyril if he wants the party to be a success, which Cyril replied of course, and asks why. But Luke explains that to ensure the party's success they must utilize everyone's strengths. Chloe points out that Tristan had encouraged them to take on new challenges, and Cyril agrees, reassuring the group that if they fail he will be there to cover for them. Luke jokingly asks for Cyril's position, but then agrees to be his aide when Cyril offers him the role. They shake hands, sealing their new partnership, and Luke expresses his excitement about working together. The other students are amused by Cyril's unconventional methods, and Chloe comments that it looks like it will be a fun experience. The students begin to eagerly volunteer for different roles, with one boy excitedly offering to arrange the machine for the party and a girl confidently offering to take charge of the music. Luke throws his arm around a surprised Cyril and comments on how his push was stronger than necessary and that his formal speech makes him feel like a stranger. He then presents a summarized list of everyone's roles to Cyril and asks for a second look. Cyril reflects on how he has always been surrounded by people older than him in this world and has never had a moment of rest in his duty to his lady, who is the only one around his age. He had always believed that this was his given role in this new life, but now surrounded by his peers he feels a sense of belonging he has never experienced before. Luke asks if there is something wrong with the roles they have chosen, and Cyril with a small smile says that there is nothing wrong. He walks down the sunlit hallway feeling that this kind of experience is a welcome change of pace. Sophia sits at a desk with a thoughtful expression, a young boy with light hair and glasses standing beside her. Luke bursts into the classroom with a lunch bag, excitedly suggesting that he and Cyril spend their lunch break organizing the party. Cyril apologizes and tells a surprised Luke and Chloe that he has other things to take care of, leaving the party planning in their hands. Luke wonders why he left in such a hurry, and Chloe reminds him that as a personal butler, he also has to attend to his mistress in the noble class. Cyril arrives at the noble's classroom, and Sophia remarks that she had told him he didn't need to come during his lunch break. He explains with a bow that as her personal butler it is only natural for him to worry about her. Sophia then asks him to brew some tea, and as he goes to prepare it, another student remarks on his young age. He politely introduces himself as a first-year student in the servant class, and the girl is delighted to hear of his devotion to his mistress. Sophia proudly adds that he not only is devoted but also brews the best tea she has ever had. The other noble girls are intrigued and ask if they can have some of the tea as well, and Sophia agrees. Cyril wonders about their true motives for accepting the invitation to the impromptu tea party. He dismisses his worries and focuses on his duty as her butler preparing the tea in the academy's kitchen. With a focused expression, he uses his wind magic to evenly steep the tea leaves in the kettle. He then uses his magic to keep the teacups warm and carefully measures the brewing time with an hourglass. He carries the tea set back to the classroom knowing he can't be too far away in case of any attempts to poison the guests. He carefully pours the tea, ensuring the last and most delicious drop goes into his lady's cup, and presents the local specialty of the Rosenberg territory. He recommends that they drink it without milk or lemon, and Sophia proudly calls him her butler as she takes a sip. One of the girl's attendants warns her not to drink the tea, but her mistress, a girl named, and is already captivated by its aroma. The attendant named Ferris is accused of putting something in the tea, but she insists it's not suspicious at all, and is amazed by the incredible taste and fragrance of the tea, declaring it the best she has ever had. She asks for confirmation that it is indeed just black tea, and Sophia graciously allows her to confirm its authenticity, and becomes possessively attached to her cup of tea, declaring that every drop is hers. The other attendants are equally amazed by the tea's incredible taste and apologize for their earlier suspicions. A girl with long black hair who had previously been dismissive of the tea from a viscount's house is now completely stunned by its quality. Cyril realizes that the knowledge of tea in this world is not as advanced as in his previous life and that his high standards have set him apart. The other students are curious about where he learned such skills, and Sophia proudly explains that he has been great at it since they were children. The other students are impressed that he is self-taught, and Sophia offers to have him teach their servants how to brew the same tea. He understands her unspoken intention to share the technique without giving it away cheaply. She adds that while they are free to use the knowledge at their own tea parties, they must always give credit to Cyril as its originator. Cyril knows that this is a brilliant move on Sophia's part, as it will spread her name and his own throughout the noble circles. With this simple act of sharing, she has laid the foundation for her own faction at the academy. He is impressed by her strategic thinking and realizes she is a force to be reckoned with. Two of the noble girls are discussing the recent events, and one of them is unsure if the other ladies even realize that a faction is already forming around Sophia. Cyril then presents a plate of crepes with various toppings, a dessert that is completely new to them. The girls and their attendants are amazed by the unfamiliar dessert, and Cyril suggests they consult with their mistress about her preferred toppings. As the girls enjoy their crepes, one of them asks Sophia if her maid could also be taught how to make the tea. Sophia agrees and announces that their servants will be the first to learn the new techniques. Cyril sees that with just one tea party, Sophia has made herself known, and it is only a matter of time before a powerful faction forms around her, but he still wonders about her true intentions. As they walk down the hallway after classes, Sophia tells him she will see him later. Cyril stops her and asks what she is planning. She explains that the second prince is surrounded by people who favor the elitist faction. He has gathered them so quickly and obviously that it can only mean he also favors the absolute rule of the privileged class. She reveals that she is aware of his efforts to create a faction for her and that she understands the need to distance themselves from both sides. She then tells him that to do so she will also have to distance herself from him, since he is not a noble, which she would hate to do. Cyril is stunned by her cold logic and asks why she would suggest such a mean thing. She explains that she wants to avoid conflict with the prince, and if she is ever ordered as a noble to get rid of him, she would have to obey. With a look of fierce determination, she declares that she will turn against even the gods to change her fate. She tells him that she will take back her previous words and will make sure she doesn't have to fight the gods to save him. Cyril decides to trust her with building her own faction while he focuses on avoiding conflict with the two established sides. He knows the best way to do this is to keep a safe distance from the elitists while secretly approaching Libert, a key member of the commoner faction. He realizes that the upcoming welcoming party for new students is the perfect opportunity for a natural meeting without any strings attached. As the new students' welcome party begins, the various characters with their conflicting motives gather within the glorious academy. The day of the party arrives, and Cyril is pleased to see that the preparations are going smoothly as he congratulates his classmates on a job well done. The students are amazed at how far they've come, and they all agree that it would have been impossible without Cyril's perfect advice and expertise in all fields. Cyril humbly insists he was just supporting their work and thanks them for their efforts, reminding them to stay focused until the party is over. As his classmates head off to get some rest, Cyril prepares for his own final checks. Luke approaches him and asks where he is going, and Cyril explains that he is doing a final check on the state of things with his own eyes. Luke asks if he can tag along and apologizes for how panicky he was at the beginning of their project. He admits that he is not a natural leader, but with Cyril's help he is starting to get the hang of it and thanks him for the opportunity. As they walk through the kitchen, Luke asks Cyril how he became so capable at such a young age. Cyril simply states that he has constantly put everything he has into becoming worthy of the title of his lady's personal butler. Luke finds his answer too formal and Cyril asks if he can ask a question in return. Cyril directly asks Luke if someone ordered him to investigate his background. Luke feigns ignorance, but Cyril's expression remains serious. With a slight smile, Luke asks him when he first found out. Cyril admits he had his doubts from the very beginning, especially when Chloe knew his name at their first meeting and tripped to get his attention in such a suspicious way. Luke asks what he plans to do now that he knows the truth, and Cyril confesses that while he has seen him at work all month, he still has no idea what his true objective is. He adds that he has no reason to get rid of him when he is so earnest and capable, and it's not surprising that people would try to gather information on the Marquis' household. Luke is impressed by his maturity and reveals that his mentor is his master's teacher, but he cannot say more for now. Cyril is flattered when Luke says he is glad they are on the same team, and he learns that Raymond has been acting like a slave driver with the courtyard team. He hears that the courtyard team is complaining about Raymond's dictatorial leadership and asks Luke to check on them tomorrow. Luke is surprised by the request, but Cyril explains that if a problem they can't manage were to occur, it would be their responsibility to deal with it. He reminds Luke that the courtyard team are still their classmates, and as the top student he cannot simply ignore their blunders. As the party begins, a worried Sophia runs to Cyril for help. She explains that there is a quarrel in the courtyard, and though they are trying to manage it, problems keep piling up. A friend of Sophia's suggests that it's a messy situation and he might be better off going himself. Cyril knows that if he goes, Raymond will likely snap at him for his low dance score, so he decides to let Luke handle it. As they are talking, another student informs Cyril that Sophia has come to visit him. Cyril is torn between his duty to his post and his concern for his lady, but Chloe reassures him that she will handle things in his absence. He entrusts the main hall to her and rushes to meet his lady. Sophia is waiting for him at the entrance to the ballroom, and he apologizes for keeping her busy. He asks if she needs something, and she nervously fidgets with her hands. She asks if there is something wrong with the dance hall, and he realizes with a blush that she wants to dance with him. He feels sorry for her as he knows he cannot dance with her because he is a servant and one of the organizers. As he is trying to figure out what to do, a voice interrupts them. A young man with light brown hair asks if she is Lady Sophia. The young man introduces himself as Libert, the son of the Liqueur Merchants Association's leader and a key member of the Commoners faction. Libert asks Sophia for a dance, and Cyril is immediately on high alert, knowing that if she, a noble of high standing, dances with a commoner, it will be seen as a declaration of her allegiance to their side. Just as he is trying to think of a way to handle the situation without provoking the elitists, he hears a familiar voice. Alicia, the heroine of the Otome game, appears and asks Cyril to dance with her. The other guests are shocked to see a noble girl inviting a butler to dance, and Cyril is stunned by her unexpected appearance as he knows she wasn't supposed to enroll for another 3 years. He sees Sophia's expression darken and realizes she is on the verge of falling to the dark side. He tries to calm the situation by reminding himself that as an organizer he cannot dance with anyone, but his thoughts are interrupted. The second Prince Alforth appears with a bright smile and asks Sophia to dance with him. Libert is taken aback by the prince's sudden appearance, and Alforth playfully chides him for not being able to read the mood. Cyril is shocked to see the prince and Libert standing side by side as he knows the prince is the core of the elitist faction. Alicia and Sophia are equally surprised to see each other again after their brief meeting in the fitting room. Cyril knows that this situation is a tangled mess of rival factions and romantic interests, and that he, as Sophia's personal butler, must find a way to navigate it without bloodshed. He is caught in the middle of a complex web of relationships with the villainous heroine and their respective love interests, all vying for his attention. With a final look of grim determination, he steels himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that he is the only one who can guide them through this mess. The key players have gathered at the academy, with Alicia, the heroine, unexpectedly enrolling 3 years early, the second Prince Alforth already smitten with Sophia, and Libert, the leader of the Commoners faction, making his move. Cyril finds himself in a precarious situation far beyond his expectations. A simple diagram illustrates the current tangled web of relationships with the villainous heroine and the leaders of the 2 opposing factions, all requesting a dance. As the Academy's faction upheaval is about to begin, Cyril stands in the middle of it all, surrounded by the key players. The prince's plea for a dance with Sophia is so earnest that it's far beyond Cyril's wildest dreams. Cyril knows he can't step in front of the second prince to help his lady. He is confident that Sophia can handle the situation well and reassures her that he is by her side. Sophia gracefully curtsies and tells the prince that while she is honored by his invitation, she is currently in a discussion and will come to see him later. Cyril is impressed by her response as she subtly asserts her own standing without being disrespectful to the prince. She cleverly navigates the delicate social situation by promising to come to him later, a passionate response that is sure to please the prince. Cyril knows that the prince must be on cloud 9 after receiving such a response. The prince, however, is completely bewildered by her answer and asks, "Why the hell?" Cyril realizes that the prince may be trying to assert his dominance as a member of the elitist faction by interfering with the opposing faction in public. He then dismisses the idea as he sees the prince's lovesick expression and realizes he is just a clueless boy in love who completely missed the subtlety of her message. The prince's lackey then steps forward and condescendingly asks if Sophia is planning to reject His Highness's invitation. Sophia coolly asks if he is suggesting that she should ignore her current company to accept the prince's invitation. The lackey is speechless and the prince is left fidgeting nervously. Sophia apologizes to Libert for the interruption and Cyril sees that she can no longer say no to the prince. Libert smiles and tells her it's no matter at all. As an apology, Sophia offers to have her personal butler accompany him in her place. The prince's lackey then suggests that they open up the center of the dance hall for them. Cyril apologizes to Alicia on behalf of his lady and offers her his utmost hospitality while internally struggling to deal with Libert. Alicia agrees to give up on the dance but asks if he would at least have a conversation with her. Libert finds her request amusing and tells her he doesn't mind at all. Alicia with a bright smile asks what the problem is if he's a commoner. Cyril recognizes this scene from the game as the moment where the noble-hating Libert starts to grow interested in the heroine Alicia. He realizes with a jolt that if these two start liking each other, it will lead to the route where his lady is framed with false accusations and executed. He knows he must readjust their course, but ruining their relationship would only widen the gap between the nobles and commoners. After her dance with the prince, Sophia says she needs to go back to Libert. One of the prince's attendants kneels before her and asks her to stay. The attendant then asks if she realizes the meaning of his request. Sophia is annoyed by the interruption but knows she would be overstepping her boundaries if she were to rebuke him. Cyril is frustrated by her inability to remember her promise to a commoner and knows that completely neglecting their faction is even worse than avoiding conflict. He realizes that the difference in the amount of trust they direct at him is the root of the problem. Libert, however, seems to understand her intentions. He calmly accepts the situation and tells Cyril to keep his promise in mind. He then excuses himself, saying he has other business to attend to. As he leaves, Cyril is left alone with Alicia, who he had completely forgotten about. She asks him why he enrolled in the academy and he realizes his mistake too late. With a blush, she confesses that she enrolled because she thought she might see him again. Cyril is horrified as he remembers that this is the line she says to the prince in the game as they head towards the happy ending. He tries to politely refuse her request for a dance by explaining that as a butler he is not in a position to do so. Alicia is disappointed but doesn't give up. She tells him she understands but asks for a promise in exchange. She confesses that she is bad at dancing and asks him to teach her later, claiming it is a butler's duty to raise poorly educated girls like herself. He tries to politely refuse again, but she grabs his hand and excitedly declares it a promise. He finally relents and agrees to teach her if the chance ever comes. As he is escorting a tired Sophia to a nearby room to rest, she thanks him for his help. She accepts a drink from Ruche with a weary sigh. As she takes a sip of her drink, she asks Cyril how things went with Libert. Cyril apologizes for his incompetence and explains that Libert is now under the impression that she is making light of the commoners because of his actions. Sophia tells him there is no need to apologize and expresses her frustration that he would make such a judgment after she put her trust in him. Cyril quickly reassures her that her responses were appropriate and that it was his fault. He then apologizes for failing to convince Libert and for making her dance against her will. With a menacing smile, Sophia declares that if the commoners are going to harass him, she will crush them with the elitists. Ruche is shocked by her sudden declaration, but Sophia explains that it would be an easy way to end the faction war and ensure no one gets between her and Cyril. She asks him if he would still follow her if she was serious, and he bows deeply, declaring that he will follow her no matter where she goes. With a gentle smile, she tells him she was just joking and that they should now discuss their future policy. She acknowledges that today's incident has caused a misunderstanding with Libert, but it may have also caused her own faction to sway. She admits that she was naive and decides to explain the circumstances to her friends. She thanks Ruche and tells Cyril that she is fine to go back to the venue. She knows that the problem is how to deal with Libert now and that it would be best to make another attempt at making contact with him. She asks Ruche to give him a letter on her behalf and Cyril agrees to prepare one as soon as they return to the mansion. With a renewed sense of determination, Cyril vows that they will pull through this pinch and avoid the execution ending. As they are about to leave, Sophia stops him and asks if he was enjoying his conversation with Alicia earlier. He lets out a nervous laugh as he realizes her smile is even scarier than before and that he now also has to worry about an ending where only he gets executed.